Hey there, fellow citizens of the internet. Welcome to the Moses Kabandana podcast. Today, I have with me Darren Brown, and let me just let him introduce himself. Darren, welcome to the Moses Kabandana podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me. My name is Darren Brown. Um, I want to say seasoned entrepreneur. um,
Yeah.
I've been doing business now since maybe the past 19, 18 years. 18 years, many different sectors from import and export to commodity trading to hospitality to real estate to you name it.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm ready to really have a thought-provoking conversation with you.
Let's go. Let's go. And speaking of thought-provoking conversations,
Yeah,
we're gonna try to navigate this whole business creation. More
yeah.
specifically, I wish this was not a topic, but what does it look like to create a business and run a business as a person of color? Should we even be having that conversation? Is it something worth touching? First of all, where were you born? Where did you grow up? What's your upbringing?
So my upbringing, I was born and raised in London. Um, I lived in London for 24 years. Then I moved to Ghana. I made a decision to move back to Africa to do business.
Mm,
I lived there for 13 years. Well, I still technically live there, but I'm in and out now doing
yep.
business in other countries. But yeah, I was born and raised in London.
Okay. What was it like
Yeah.
to go to Ghana?
To be honest, it was for me. Like I said, both my parents are from Ghana, but I was only used to going Ghana in short spurts. So 1 week, 2 weeks. But to
Yeah.
actually live there was a big culture shock for me. It was a culture shock for me in terms of course, understanding the way people think.
Mm,
It was very different. People were more relaxed. So doing business, it took a lot of getting used to when I first moved to Ghana. But I mean, I spent some good time there and understood the kind of the ropes.
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but it was an interesting relocation. You know,
Did you have some
yeah.
people from Ghana in London that you would brush shoulders with?
No, no. So I was never. What's funny is I was never actually part of the. There's a big Ghanaian community in the UK,
Yeah.
but I was never really part of that.
Okay.
So again, that's probably why it was more of a culture shock that way. Of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
like I said, my parents are from there, but it was still a culture shock because you're doing business with people of your generation, people
Yeah.
of older generation. So of course, the advice from my parents was more for the older generation, but not necessarily the younger generation. So
How did
yeah,
that feel? Like not being part of the Ghanaian community in London? Because the reason I asked that is because when I was in college, it's like
yeah,
you had a huge group of students that are from different countries in Africa, and then you had some students that are African American from the States, and there's not much mingling, between the two.
yeah,
And I, to some extent, wasn't like quite fitting in with the African students, and I was not quite
yeah.
fitting in with the African American students. So I mean, I
Okay,
wasn't really like going out of my way to try and
yeah.
be part of one or the other, but I would feel this what are you again? What? Yeah. So it's like I'm wondering if you face any of that.
Living when I moved to Ghana, or when I lived
When you
in
were in
the UK.
London and yeah, in the
When,
India, in the
when I was no, I never again because I was born and raised there. I never ever felt that way.
okay,
I was fortunate enough to go to a very mixed school
okay,
from primary to secondary school. So I never actually felt. I never actually felt it wasn't significant. Being black wasn't significant in school, because of
okay,
course we were all from London. We were all from African descent, of
yeah,
course, but we
okay,
were all born and raised in London. So it never really felt that way.
okay. What about when you went to Ghana?
When I went to Ghana, what's funny is that when I went to Ghana is I felt more isolated when I went to Ghana as a born and raised British person in
Yeah.
Ghana,
Yeah.
right? Because of course now it's like you're an outsider. You know,
Yeah.
you didn't go to school there, you have no foundation there,
Yeah.
and you're meeting people that obviously went to school together, university together. They've built all these friendships and bonds that you didn't.
Right.
So it was more what you're talking about. Oh, so when did you say you're born
Yeah.
again? Or it's like you
Yeah.
went to Onion.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
so funny. It works in the reverse.
Yeah. Man, that's interesting. That's really interesting. So
Yeah.
how does that translate into the business world? So you're trying to create a business in a country and culture that it's part of your culture, but maybe not. Like how does that translate into the business world?
I think it translates in the sense that, before you can do business anywhere, first of all, I believe you need to have a basic foundation network, right?
Okay.
And establishing my network in Ghana was quite difficult because, again, there was no common ground. There was no
Right.
common ground as if our parents know each other or, we went to school
Yeah.
together. So it took me a long time to actually infiltrate that community, and it was actually, so when I first moved to Ghana, I was going back and forth to London a lot, right? Maybe once a month I was going to London. I still
Okay.
didn't deal with the reality of relocating. But
Right.
when I decided to actually stick in Ghana for about 3 years consistently without leaving, that's when opportunities opened to me. So when a lot of people saw that, okay, this guy's actually from here, this guy's
Yeah.
actually relocated, he's part of us. And that's when, people started accepting me in different communities. And it was easier to pick up the phone and do a deal. It was easier to pick up the phone and find out some information.
Yeah.
So it was still a challenge. It was still a challenge.
What was your first business that you tried to kick off the ground
So,
in
so
Ghana?
my first business was actually export. So I was exporting paint and washing powder from the UK. So I was hotels, embassies. That was my actual first business in Ghana. And part of the reason I actually relocated to Ghana was it was becoming too stressful from doing the business from the UK, sending my products to Ghana. I had to be on the ground to
Okay.
receive my containers, to pay the taxes, to release them from the port.
Yeah.
It was a very hands business, right? So that's part of the reason I actually relocated, because it was, you can't leave your business and so much capital in the hands of others.
Right.
So that was part of the reason I relocated. But that was my first business. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. So
yeah,
that lets me in on a little bit more into this world because it's like you're not just creating a business. Like with in this case, correct me if I'm wrong. You also have to understand some of the local laws, right? So if you're exporting from one country into another, you also have to understand the laws of the importing on the receiving end, right? And like you said, now you have to have people there, and I mean, what it's like to navigate the legal side of two completely different, or what seems to be completely different legal systems. Like, how do you even start with that? That's insane.
yeah. So again, I think it was I was dealing with a very limited network at the time.
Yeah,
Dealing with a limited network, I literally used the resources that I had. So when I was going back and forth to Ghana, the people I'd met over the years, oh, can I have a clearing agent, somebody that
yeah,
works at the port to clear? They'll introduce me to one person. Then a few experiences at the port, you meet other people. Oh, how much are you paying to clear? Oh, I can do it for cheaper. And then you take that person's number. Then you try them out. Okay, I've got one container coming on the 4th of April. Could you clear this one? I've got another coming on the 10th. Could you clear that one? Just to see who was the better clearing agent. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
I've always known in business you have to have about 2 to 3 options for everything. You know,
Okay,
because you can't depend on one resource. I've never believed that you always have to have 2 to 3 people that you can for the same thing, But Africa taught me that. Africa
Okay.
taught me
Yeah.
that because of the level of accountability. If somebody, excuse me to say, if somebody doesn't do the job they said they were going to do, it's very difficult to find that person again. Not like the where you can say, "Hey, this is the person's address. They robbed me of this much money.
Yep.
Arrest them." It's not that simple. So I always knew
Right.
that you have to have 2 to 3 options for every single aspect of your business.
Yeah, that's a good segue to my next question, which is like I had a conversation with this guy
Yeah,
he was from Venezuela, and he was used to doing business, let's just say, in a certain way in
yeah,
Venezuela, and so he
yeah.
finds himself in Miami, and he got into some legal trouble, and he tried to bribe, a cop there,
Yeah,
and he just quickly learned that yeah, it
yeah.
doesn't work well,
Doesn't. Yeah,
in stateside, but in Venezuela, that's just how he conducted business. Hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you cut a corner here? What if I slip you a 50? What if I slip you a 500? Can you do
yeah,
this? I mean, it's still business mindset, but
yeah, yeah.
it just that way of doing business did not translate on the legal side in the States. So anything that's kind of similar on that front with you?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I think living in Africa for over a decade taught me that, look, there we have the same systems in the Western world to Africa. They're just dressed up differently, right? That's it. It's the same thing.
Okay.
So somebody
Yeah.
asked me the other day, did you ever experience corruption? Did you ever experience it? And I said to them that, to be honest, everywhere in the world has a level of corruption, right?
Right.
It's literally just how it's dressed up, right? So, for instance, in the UK, if I want to get my passport renewed, right?
Yeah.
I can £20 to get it, let's say in 1 month, or I can pay £100 to get it the next day, right?
Right. Right.
In another country, you do exactly the same thing. It's just they don't have a system to accommodate it. They don't have
Right.
necessarily a platform to accommodate it. So in Africa, I'll do the same thing to get a passport the next day. You pay more for the service, but that's just
Right.
called expedite. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not called corruption. It's
Right.
just called
Yeah.
expedite or fast track. So in reference to your friend from Venezuela, I think that again, I don't think there was anything wrong with what he did, but it's just there might be a system, maybe, right? Of
Yeah.
course, if you're
Yeah.
in the wrong, in some countries we can pay to get out of trouble, of course, right?
Yeah.
But there are also systems that do accommodate bribery, So I think it's just how developed a country is. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's just how
Okay.
developed a country. Yeah, yeah,
So let's take like a quick pivot here to something
yeah,
relatively different. For a youngster today, it's like 18, 19, let's even say like 25, and they also happen to be in Ghana, and they're trying to start something off the ground, right? And they don't have that the deep pockets to expedite things, right? How does a youngster go about starting a business? Let's say importing or exporting a product, or connecting local farmers to provide a particular good to local supermarkets or something.
So what I find so interesting about business is that
Yeah.
anytime I'm asked this question, I say that, look, business, to start business, it's not just starting the business, it's how do you develop your mindset in the first place, right?
Right.
Before you start business, there's a certain level of mindset you need to have, right? And the mindset is that everybody you interact with on a daily basis, right,
Yep.
is useful somehow. Everybody. It could be a cleaner, it could be a bus driver, it could be the person that serves you in a shop, right? What interaction do you have with that person How do you receive that person? How do you talk to that person? Because when you are now ready to do a business, you look through your phone book and say, who can help me progress in my business, right? But if you don't have that mindset before you start the business, you'll start from zero, because you're starting not understanding the core fundamentals of relationships, the core fundamentals
Yeah.
of network. So I think before anybody starts a business, the people they go to school with, your classmates, maybe on your football team, your teammates, talk, understand, what do their parents do? What do their brothers do? What do their sisters do? Before you know it, people can be more resourceful than they actually set their minds out to, right? So it's your resources. It's your
Yeah.
resources. And even if tomorrow a young person wants to start a cleaning company, right? You need numbers in your phone book to say, hey, can I clean your house?
Right.
You need this, So I think it's the mindset before you start a business. You have to have that mindset of collecting data, collecting numbers. So when you are ready, you have a basic foundation to build upon.
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, you have to have the ability and the willingness to do market research before you can start
100%.
and get into one. Okay.
100%
Okay.
market research. And again, it's understanding the value of humans, understanding the value of human beings, understanding the value of friendships, understanding the value of relationships,
Yep.
because
Yep.
it's easier to call somebody and say, hey, I have this business, I have this service, I have this product. Could I give you one? Could I do the service that I'm offering for you, for your family? You need to start from somewhere. You need to
Okay.
start from. Yeah,
So
yeah.
inspiration is not enough because most of us we get we start businesses because we're inspired, but then like inspiration might be enough to get you started, but it might not be the thing that actually like carries you through. Because at some point
Oh yeah.
you might feel like things are not going anywhere. You might lose contact. You might lose a big client. The only client. I mean, it's just you can have all kinds of downsides that at a point where inspiration is nowhere to be found. So I guess that's the question I'm
Right.
trying to get to here is
Okay.
how do you continue to push through with the at the absence of inspiration?
I think faith is important. I do think
Okay.
faith is important. I believe. Look, in anything I've ever done, I think it's understanding. Just be the last man standing. That's how I've lived my life. Just be the last man standing. Because if you're the last man standing, there's no other option but to win. You know, as long as you put all your shortfalls, all your
Yeah.
losses, as long as you can be the last man standing, you will always progress. Always.
Okay.
I think that when inspiration is, you touched on inspiration. Inspiration is
Yeah.
very important, but at the same time, you also need the willingness, the drive to understand that your first time is never going to be your best time, you know. And you only need to be right once in life,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
A lot of people believe you need to be right for your whole life, from when you're 16 to. You only need to be right once. If you show
Yeah.
up every day, one day you'll win, or one day you'll get that inspiration to go further. It's just one
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Every day you've been given to relive or to better yourself is another opportunity to progress. You know,
Okay. What would you say is the biggest misconception that people have about starting and running a business?
that is overnight. That just you have a great product and people will buy it overnight. No, it doesn't work like that,
Yeah.
because you're not reinventing the wheel. You know, people have done it before you were there. People will do it after you leave, right? But it's the
Right.
level of your consistency, and I think the level of your ability to learn also from your mistakes, right? None of us are perfect, so
Yep. Yep.
it's the ability to okay, what could I have done better? Even if I'm 95% good at what I do, what's that 5%? Because that 5% can make you lose the whole 100%. That small 5% can lose everything. Just thinking that I found my niche. I'm the best at what I do, but there's always somebody that's looking at what you do that wants to be better than you.
Right.
So
Right.
that 5%, the ability to constantly pivot, to constantly maybe add some additional flavor to your business, some additional strategy to your business. So the biggest misconception is thinking that once you start a business, you just do the same thing the whole lifespan of the business. No, your business, you always need to audit yourself, audit the people around you, audit your numbers before you can progress. Because somebody is always looking at your business. If I want to start a business tomorrow, my market research is somebody else's business. I'm
Right.
going to look at what they're doing right. I'm going to look at what they're doing wrong. I'm going to look at what they can do to improve. Right.
Yeah.
So if you know that, then you should also be auditing yourself to say, okay, what can I do better? What can I improve on? Because somebody's coming to take your place.
Yeah, yeah. Now let me take a short break here, and that's like and audit your memory. Speaking of auditing, what is your oldest, like if you can think of, like as far back as you can think of, what is your
Yeah.
earliest memory that you have, like the very first
My
memory
early
that comes to mind?
life.
Yeah.
Good question. I would say my earliest memory would be, I'll probably say my earliest memory would be watching my dad read the newspaper every morning
Huh.
and questioning me. It was funny, and questioning me on topics of the world when I was like 6, 7,
Okay.
questioning, what do you think about X,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? The reason I said that was my early, because I remember I used to wake up, you've just woken up, you're a kid, you're going to get your cereal, you
Yeah.
don't care about world topics.
Yeah.
And this would question me early in the morning, you've just woken up. This man's asking me about, what do you think about what's happening in Saudi Arabia? And
Yeah.
I'd be like, I don't know what's happening in Saudi Arabia, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't
Right.
know.
Right.
That's my earliest memory, you know?
Huh.
Yeah, yeah. So,
That's crazy. How do you think that has had an impact in how you reevaluate things, or like how, like if you're reading about, I don't know, maybe you're trying to get into real estate in a particular area, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what in the next 2-3 years, are there any businesses that are coming around this area, like as you're trying to figure out where to put a new place, like how do you think that memory, or just your father reading newspaper to you and just trying to engage your brain way
yeah.
outside of your sphere of competence at that point, how do you think that has impacted you?
So what's funny is, a lot of things our parents do or our teachers do when we're younger, we never understand the importance of it. It's only when we're older we see, I see why
Right,
you're doing what
right.
you're doing.
Yeah.
I think how it's affected me is that it has made me question everything. It's made me
Okay.
question absolutely everything in life. It's made me curious. It's made me want to understand. It could be the smallest thing, right? It could be the smallest thing, but it's made me want to have a basic understanding about everything, you know? And how that helps in my business is because you remain a student. In life, we should always remain students. We
Right.
should never believe we know, because the more you learn about life, the more you realize we know nothing. We know absolutely nothing.
Right. Right.
So I think that questioning of my dad at the time, 5, 6 years old, it did have an adverse effect in me also questioning, me wanting to understand, what's
Yeah.
happening here? Or at the time, it wasn't important, but I see the importance of it now.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
just provoking thought, even just provoking thought when you don't need to. A lot of us believe it's only when you're in school It's only when you're doing an exam. It's
Yeah.
only when you're in a serious moment that you need to think.
Mm.
But our brains are made to think all the time,
Yep. Yep.
all the time. That's how we keep active. That's how we stay young. That's how we stay youthful. That's how we stay adventurous, is when you constantly think, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep. Hmm.
yeah,
No, yeah, that's an important insight because even when we're asleep, our brains don't stop, right?
yeah,
You're
exactly.
dreaming, you're freaking out, you're solving a problem. There's always something going on with your
There's
brain,
always something.
and in the spirit of questioning things, how has that way of approaching things like helped or not helped when it comes to entering certain circles that are let's just say like if there's a narrative that black people don't do this, black people don't do that, or you are in the wrong room, or you don't fit in because there's like two of you amongst that many, and
Mm,
you're just having to negate those thoughts.
mm,
Let me reframe this. It's like I was in Portugal, or maybe this was like a year ago, and I'm hanging out with this brother that I just met from California, and we're having a grand time,
yeah,
good time, cool guy, hard worker, saved his money. We're not having a good time, and towards the very end of our interaction, we're going about our separate ways, and I'm probably 10, 15, 20 feet away, and he says, "Hey Moses, remember you are a black man, right?" And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, oh man, this guy, I mean, like, great guy, smart and everything, but he's still carrying this, right? Like wherever he goes, like we're thousands of miles away from his main home, but the mentality, right? The message that he's carrying in his head, independently of which circles that he's in, he's always thinking, I might not be able to do this, I might not be able to enjoy this because I'm black, right? So
mm,
that's the frame of mind that I have when I
mm.
when I ask this question to you.
It's a very interesting question you ask, because I think that as we go on in life, some harsh realities are presented to us, right? Some harsh realities are presented. I mean, I'm in Mexico City right now. I've been here for the past 5 months, and I am aware that I'm a black man in Mexico. Now, I think, does that hinder maybe what I decide to do? No, it doesn't. But I think, again, it's dealing with the reality of knowing the game you're playing, right? So we all, as black people, we know the game we're playing, right?
Mm.
In a lot of countries, we are classed as second-class citizens. Right? Let's just put it out there. We are classed as second-class citizens. But I also do believe that it's our job, okay, to live in our truth, right? Not to be victims,
Yeah,
but to live
yeah,
in our truth. To understand that, hey, when you go somewhere, maybe you booked a reservation at a high-end restaurant. They might look at you a certain way. As long as you know within yourself that you can pay for it just as much as everybody else,
yeah.
live your truth, right? But it does not mean that if you're given issues, you you stay there and fight, because you're fighting the wrong battle.
Yeah.
Because the battle you're fighting, you can't win. And the battle you're fighting is somebody's ignorance. You
Hmm.
don't the fool.
Right,
You
right.
do not argue. It's the stupidest thing to do, to argue the fool.
Yep.
But if you live in your truth and you know, well, hey, why am I giving a restaurant money that won't accept my dollar? You walk
Mm.
away and be
Right.
happy in the fact, hey, I'll rather give somebody that will accept my dollar. You
Yeah.
know, it's just living in your truth, not being the victim, and understanding the game we're playing. The best example I can ever give is that when Indians, Pakistanis, people from Sri Lanka,
Mm. Mm.
there was a big influx of people from Asia moving to the UK, right?
Yeah.
I think it was in the early 90s, right? Late 80s, early 90s, right? Now, these people are just like us. They're brown. You cannot, it's very easy to distinguish who they are, right? Now, these people came to the UK and they understood the game they were playing. They decided to open the cash and carry businesses, wholesale businesses, convenience stores.
Yeah.
They lived in their truth. And they, when everybody laughed at them saying, why are you selling penny sweets? Why are you selling Snickers, chocolates, and only making 20p profit, right?
Yeah.
Today, the Prime Minister of the UK is an Indian man, right?
Right. Right.
They understood and lived in their truth, understanding that when you go to somebody else's country, right, play the game. Play the game. You're not home.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not home. Play the game. And once you know the game you're playing, it's easier to win because you know the game you're playing.
Right. Right.
Get what I'm saying? So they are the perfect example of a nationality that played the game. And now, when you see an Indian man in the UK, you forget he's Indian. You forget because they've played the game so well. The best analogy I can give is that look, I believe racism exists for one reason. Racism exists because of no two reasons: ignorance and fear. That's how racism exists, right? Now,
Yep.
if if tomorrow I move into an area, right, and my neighbor on this side is white, my neighbor on this side is white, right? The moment you're living in the area and you're in a close proximity, then you have no other option but to talk to each other. The moment you talk to each other is the moment you understand each other, right? So us as black people need to understand that if you're not home, right?
Yeah.
If you're not in your home country, right? Play the game. And unity is what will allow us to be heard. Now, when I say heard, I'm not talking about, oh, I'm a black man, so I'm not given opportunities. No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that's not what I'm saying, because that now you're playing victim.
Right. Right.
If you, my brother, right, Moses, you and I say, listen, we are gonna move into this area. It's a predominantly white area, but you and I are gonna move into this area. People will look and say, at first they might say, is this man a sportsman? Is he an artist? But the moment you say, no, I'm a businessman. No, I'm an entrepreneur. The moment they understand that you can do the same things they can, right?
Yep. Yep.
There's a level of respect. That's how it starts. It starts in the proximity you are to somebody. But if we continue to live segregated, if we continue to live in areas that are just predominantly black and we don't start also spreading ourselves,
Yeah.
then there's always going to be the ignorance and fear.
Yep.
Always.
Yep.
Like, come on, in Africa, you don't face that problem because when you walk into the bank manager is a black man, your taxi driver is a black man, everyone's
Right.
black, so you forget you're black, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When you move away from that, you understand that okay, I'm in a foreign land, let me play the game, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That is well put. Understand the game, understand the rules of the game, and
yeah,
play the game accordingly. And I mean, I only brought that up because, like, for me, it was a change in how I phrased that phrase. So instead of saying instead of like sticking to the I am a black man type
yeah,
thing, because for some reason that carries a different weight than saying I am a man that happens to be black,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
that small change
yeah,
in phraseology there, that just it changed everything. So on one end, you don't want to be naive and blind to the uh, inadequacies of some people, right? But you also don't want to give them any more power than it needs to, right? So I think that's what
yeah,
you're addressing to.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, yeah. So you're in Mexico.
Yeah.
How's your Spanish?
My Spanish, it's survival Spanish. The pure,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
pure. Yeah, yeah. But I'm learning.
Okay.
I'm actually going to start. I found a school close to where I live. I'm going to start very soon doing actual classes to become fluent. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Okay. As long as you
yeah,
can order a beer, and that's where the bathroom
right.
is, that's all you
Exactly,
need.
exactly.
Okay.
So I'm actually here working remotely because I'm opening a restaurant lounge in Houston, in Texas, and I'm currently waiting on my business visa.
Yep.
It's quite a long process. So, but yeah, that's why I'm actually here because it's 1 hour behind Houston, so
Okay.
it's easy to work. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Wow. Wow.
yeah.
So I'm assuming that you going to Houston that often, relatively often.
Yeah, I was going to Houston. I was going to Houston very often. I'm 1 month open. No, less than a month now. We're going to open the lounge in end of September.
Okay.
After that, then I'll apply for a business visa that I can stay in the US more long term. So the way it works is when you apply for the visa, you can't actually enter the US. So I'm waiting for that whole process for the business to be open and then go. Yeah,
Yeah. What's it gonna be called?
it's called Maya Lounge.
Maya
Maya,
Lounge.
AYA, Maya Lounge, Houston. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
So
So
a lounge, like,
yeah,
is that a bar? Is that a combination of? I mean, like, well, what?
it's a restaurant and lounge. So from let's say 5 p.m. to around 10 p.m. It's more kind
Okay.
of dining, relaxed. And after 10, the lights go dimmer, the music goes up, and people can order their cocktails, their drinks. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah.
A lot of businesses moved to Austin in the last 3 years. What made you decide Austin?
No, Houston.
Houston,
Actually, it
Houston.
wasn't.
Sorry, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, Houston.
yeah.
What made you choose Houston?
Um, you know, I have a thing for emerging markets. I love going into markets when there's a change, when there's a shift. So,
Okay.
pre-pandemic, Houston wasn't seen as a city to do business, right?
Yeah.
Post-pandemic or during the pandemic, Texas was one of the only states other than Atlanta and Florida
Florida. Yeah.
that were open. So a lot of people from California, a lot of people from New York, they started moving to Houston and other parts of Texas, Austin as well, Dallas,
Yep.
because the income taxes are less and the cost of living is also less.
Hmm. Hmm.
So there was an opportunity there because, of course, Houston was now becoming an emerging market. It was now people were starting to do business there. It was becoming more cosmopolitan.
Yep.
So me and my business partners, we saw the opportunity and we took it. To be honest, that's why I was going back and forth to Houston or the
Yeah.
States for about the past 5 years, and I saw a
First,
big change.
first business in the States.
Yes, first business, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How's the how is that process in comparison to opening a business in Ghana?
A lot more permitting, a lot
Okay.
more red tape that you need to navigate, which takes a
Yeah.
lot of time.
Yep. Yep.
Permits for every electrical permits, plumbing permits, fire permits,
Yeah. Everything.
things that I never had to consider when I was in Ghana. But
Yeah. Yeah.
again, it's been we've probably been building this thing for the past 2 years now. Many delays, but I believe I've just got 10 years experience in the past 2 years because we
Oh
built a
wow.
first generation restaurant. So what happened is we took an empty space
Okay.
and had to do a kitchen, a whole new kitchen, grease trap, plumbing, everything was from
Wow.
scratch, right?
Hmm.
In this experience, I'll never do it again because the amount of permits, because it's a new place, the amount of
Yep.
permits you need to go through the process is too cumbersome. But in my next project, which I want to start next year, I'll only do maybe take an existing restaurant and remodel it.
Okay.
I'll never take
Yeah.
a first generation again.
Hmm. Okay.
Now,
Well, lessons learned.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everybody that's watching that wants to build or invest in a restaurant and lounge, please take somewhere that was already a restaurant and lounge. Do not take an empty space and try to do it from scratch, because I'm telling you, it's a nightmare.
But it's also an
Yeah.
investment, no? Because it's like you own that place outright, right? So and you own the land and
So
everything.
we're leasing the
Okay.
place. Yeah, we're leasing the place. For a business like that, I would never want to own the building to do something like that. You know,
Okay.
those are really 10-year businesses, 5, 10-year businesses. They're just for cash flow. These kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
businesses, not for longevity, but for cash flow. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So longevity. I like that word. So let me ask a little bit more on that. So um, I respect people that are able to do something, anything, relatively well, especially if it is something that is competitive, relatively well across time. Right? Because that's where the challenges and admiration on my hand like come from is the across time part. Because everybody can do something well once, maybe twice, but to do it relatively well across time, that's where the challenges comes in. So can you let me in a little bit on the mentality side of what does it take to take on a project, a business, whatever it is. Hell, it can even be just like playing tennis for 10 years consistently across, just being consistent, right?
Yeah.
What does that look like in the business world, and what does that what does it take?
I think, again, we touched on this earlier. It takes an ability to understand that no matter how well you're doing, there's always room for improvement, right?
Okay.
So again, I just communicated to you a lesson learned, right, in this 2-year process of building this business. The
Yeah.
business hasn't even existed yet, but I've already learned something,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's the self auditing that allows you to question what happened there, why did it happen, how can I improve on it? You know,
Okay.
already I've just told you a lesson I've learned for when I do my next project,
Yep.
how I'm going to do it. So I think for the consistency, for the longevity, it's just being able to, whether it's every 6 months, once a year, sitting down with some critical thinkers around you and brainstorming on what did we do wrong, why did we do it wrong,
Yep.
how can we improve on it.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
so important. Yeah.
Man, it's just crazy that the hour already flew by.
Yeah.
And we're already coming to a close here
Very
that
quick. Yeah.
fast already. So as we're coming to a close here, are there things that you would like to leave the audience with? Some final tips on man, like so I feel like in order just like to enter into something that's gonna demand your time and that's gonna demand your money, which is well, time is the only thing that you have that you're guaranteed is
Yeah.
the now. So if you're gonna enter into an endeavor that takes your time and takes your money, there's got to be some serious thinking that goes that have to go into
100%.
that. So there's a lot of fear that goes with that
Yeah.
and a lot of uncertainty. So how if you're starting a business, if you're thinking about starting a business, you're looking for mentorships, you're like, man, so many other people have failed before me. Just all that comes with the fear of creating something new or going where you haven't been before. I like to think of it as like you have to take the smallest possible step that you can take, and then worry about the next step when you need to. But I wanna hear from you, like what does it look like to navigate this endeavor of uncertainties?
So again, I think firstly it's understanding yourself. Okay, understanding
Okay.
yourself is the first step, right? And the reason I say understanding yourself is the first step is because in any endeavor you take, whether it be business, whether it be relationship, whether it be relocation, whether it be whatever it is,
Yeah.
you need to ask yourself, can you handle the worst case scenario? So you highlight your advantages, you highlight your disadvantages, and you ask yourself, in the worst case scenario, so let's say, okay, a business, okay, so let's even say an athlete. somebody wants to become an athlete, it's going to require 10,000 hours of training, right? To become a professional at that, whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
The 10,000 hour rule is anything you do for 10,000 hours, you become a master at it, right? Now you need to ask yourself, if I invest this 10,000 hours and I invest my money and I invest my time to do whatever it is I'm deciding to do, can I handle the worst case scenario? Now, as the worst case scenario, my business doesn't work. The worst case scenario, I don't make the league. The worst case scenario, you know, my business doesn't go the way that I want it to go. If you can handle the worst case scenario at the end of that, then do it.
Okay.
Because it's better to do it and understand that, you know what, I invested this much time, I learned something new, it built my character, it gave me wisdom, it's gonna help me on my next endeavor,
Yeah.
then why not?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you also need to understand yourself. Because if you're somebody that's an overthinker, somebody that panics at the smallest thing, somebody that panics at petty issues, right? Then maybe it's not for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
okay. But understanding yourself is the primary foundation of anything, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like you need to understand what's happening in your world before you try to do anything
Yes,
in
exactly.
the world out there. So
Exactly.
that's
So
a
that's the only
beautiful
way you can
insight.
give the best, when you understand yourself. Because there's no worse feeling than walking away from something having question marks.
Yeah.
There's no worse feeling than, what if I did it this way? What if I did it that way? But if you know yourself and you say, hey, I gave it my all, man,
Yeah.
you can walk away. You can
Yeah.
walk away happily, you know?
Right. Right.
So,
Wow. So, man, sad that the hour really flew
yeah,
by. Um,
bye.
but what if people want to keep up with your shenanigans,
Yeah.
as I think Texans use that word, where would they find you?
So you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is Darren Bond 007, as in James Bond, Darren Bond 007. So, and then the lounge that will be open end of September is called Maya Lounge HTX, which is for Houston, Texas. So
Okay.
MAY Lounge HTX. Those are the two Instagram handles you can catch me and my endeavors.
Darren Brown, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to the Moses
Thank you so
Kabandana
much, Moses.
podcast.
Thank you.